I believe it was in a Q&A video that I was asked to speculate on a Takagi-san spin-off where Takagi was the protagonist and the one whose thoughts we were privy to. I said at the time that the story would likely lose something if we knew what Takagi was thinking, as part of the fun was not knowing what she had up her sleeve. To be fair, I did follow this up with an admission that I would have probably turned my nose up at the premise of the Moto series as well, and I would have been a right fool for doing so. But episode 1 of season 3 ends with a story that doesn't so much give us a look into Takagi's mind during a competition, but rather a look into the mindset she is entering season 3 with. Yes, episode 1 contains 2 dream sequences, both of which start in a mundane fashion to lull us into a false sense of familiarity before giving us insight into the minds of our target character through surreal, or in this case, hyper-specific imagery. However, I'm not going to make the same mistake I did in the last analysis and assume that there is no deeper meaning to the mundane beginning. In fact, with just some minor digging, I could likely explain the purpose of most elements put into this scene. For starters, of all prank attempts, why did Takagi dream about a jack-in-the-box? A simple explanation is that she has either already picked up on the fact that Nishikata is making one through her powerful intuition, or Nishikata just makes these things far more often than we're aware of. But the metatextual explanation is that the jack-in-the-box now means something to Takagi. In Season 2, Episode 9, Worries, Takagi is having a bad day after a fight with her mother. This fight was over the dates of a family trip and whether she would be home to attend the summer festival with Nishikata. Nishikata unintentionally cheered her up with a jack-in-the-box. The similarity between the conflict in Worries and the mindset she finds herself in now is that she is upset over something to do with Nishikata. That mindset being disappointment. It turns out that despite maintaining a friendly demeanor and allowing the rest of the festival to be business as usual, Takagi is ultimately disappointed that they missed out on the fireworks. But the other details in this scene, as well as some other imagery throughout the dream, tells us that she is not upset with Nishikata over this disappointment. For instance, why is this particular jack-in-the-box a dinosaur of all things? The sensible explanation is that Takagi has likely seen the movie poster in her waking hours and figured that this seems like the kind of thing Nishikata would be into. She has in the past expressed an interest in his passions and will confirm explicitly in Bewilderball that she wants to know about the things he likes. But from a more emotional point of view, this is likely a way for Takagi to remind herself that Nishikata is not as mature as she is yet. The disappointment over what happened at the summer festival and her wish for him to see her in a different light are caused and prolonged respectively by this childish element of Nishikata's character. I should mention that she does not begrudge this childish side of him, and likely finds it more charming than obstructing. This is more likely a way for her to remind herself that he isn't incapable of ever seeing her in a romantic light. He just isn't emotionally mature enough to see anyone that way right now. Not even her. When Takagi opens the jack-in-the-box, we get our "oh, this is a dream" moment, as light pours out and she is transported to a beach where there are fireworks going off. Before we even get into Takagi's line about losing, there is a whole lot to mention right off the bat. For starters, this is where we get into more significance of Dream Nishikata's prank of choice. Takagi's dream logic has decided that when she is upset, Nishikata will fix it with a jack-in-the-box. In this case, one full of fireworks, the thing she is currently upset about. It's also worth noting that the beach they are standing on is clearly the same beach from the post-credit scene of Summer Festival. A scene that always came across to me as something Nishikata thought of to make up for losing Takagi. This is seemingly Takagi's way of acknowledging that despite being upset about missing the fireworks, she knows that Nishikata will properly make up for it one day. Takagi loses the game she suggested in the mundane segment of the dream, but when Nishikata begins to gloat, she looks genuinely happy. This further suggests something that was first suggested in Camping Trip. that winning ultimately doesn't matter to Takagi, or at least it's not always her first priority. When Takagi challenged Nishikata to hold her hand during the dance, she was hoping to lose that competition, but in lieu of winning, she would instead achieve a new milestone in their relationship. That's what's happening here. Despite not winning their game, she did get to, in her words, see the fireworks together with Nishikata. With this line, we are again taken back to the summer festival. I should make a note here that both Nishikata and Takagi are taken back to the exact same spot, the spot where they were reunited and Nishikata held Takagi's hand. I probably don't need to explain why this spot holds such significance for the pair. Takagi offers her hand to Nishikata. What's interesting about this moment is the contrast between it and Nishikata's version of holding Takagi's hand. In Nishikata's dream, the intimate gesture of hand-holding was mixed in with their rivalry, as evidenced by his going to do just that and being fooled in the process. In Takagi's mind, the rivalry and intimate aspects of their relationship stop being mixed as soon as they need to be. If you recall my hand-holding video essay, you will remember that one step along that arc was Takagi using competition to get Nishikata used to the idea, but eventually electing to separate this intimate gesture from their rivalry in Nurse's office. To Nishikata, hand-holding is a way that he could potentially be fooled or further flustered, but to Takagi it is an important gesture and declaration of how close they have become. This is why I'm glad that there is no adaptation of prayer, because in that story the hand-holding is absolutely entwined with their rivalry, and this aspect of Takagi's dream seems to suggest that we have moved past that. Even in Takagi's mind, this has become a part of their dynamic, as her dream version of Nishikata, who has acted faithfully to the real deal up to this point, goes to accept her gesture and take her hand. As their hands get closer, we get another scene transition as well as a new musical theme for the pair. The music is sweet and uplifting, and the scene is set against a backdrop of blooming cherry blossom trees. An important piece of cultural symbolism to keep in mind is that blooming cherry blossom trees are often used as a symbol of new beginnings, and this scene winds up being a beginning for Takagi as Nishikata tells her something. When I first saw this, I assumed that Nishikata was confessing, as evidenced by Takagi's waking wish that he would one day say those words to her for real. But in the show's occasionally infuriating habit of keeping things slow and vague, we don't know what he said for sure. And given how much the finale of the season looks like this dream scene, it's possible that he said something completely different. Takagi-san, I'm going down the shops, you want $1 Chucky? Oh, I promised I'd never do that again. Following her wish that he will one day say these words to her for real, we get a quick shot of the hairpin Nishikata gifted her at the end of Summer Festival. What could this possibly mean? Well, if you recall, the hand-holding was not the only character growth Nishikata saw in the Season 2 finale. Earlier, he got to pick out a prize from a game he and Takagi had played, and decided on a hairpin that he offered to her. In the context of I hope Nishikata confesses to me, or offers to get me $1 Chucky, or whatever he said in the dream, it's a reminder that he has come a long way from Season 1 to here. This was already made clear by Nishikata's own dream and his reaction to it, but it's nice to see this idea expressed in a way that is directly linked to Takagi. The final scene of this story has a few minor details worth pointing out, like how Nishikata is still drawn a little darker than usual due to the previous story, and how if Takagi did dream about a Jack-in-the-Box due to intuition, then it must be a subtle enough intuition that it surprises even her. But the most important part of the final scene, yes, even more important than Takagi saying that this was payback, is the face she makes when she sees the Jack-in-the-Box. Here's something I always wondered about this story. A nitpick I never bothered to bring up because it didn't subtract from the overall narrative. Why did the animators choose to make the dinosaur fireworks look exactly like the Jack-in-the-Box Nishikata had actually made? It's admittedly already stretching it that Takagi would have guessed that he would make a Jack-in-the-Box at all, let alone guess the theme, but to know exactly what it would look like seems a step too far. But then I really dug into what this face is trying to say. The animators and storytellers behind this show were making a very explicit point with this decision. The point is that Takagi knows Nishikata better than she thinks she does. She knows that this is exactly the kind of stunt he would pull on a day like this. She knows that he's likely seen that movie poster and has dinosaurs on the brain. And she knows exactly what he is capable of making and the stylistic choices he will put in. The point is that if she can predict such fine details, imagine the confidence she would have in the broader ones. If she knows him well enough to predict the first half of her dream, who's to say that the second half won't eventually happen too? That Nishikata won't one day see the fireworks with her, or confess. So this is where Takagi is starting the season from. While disappointed about the summer festival to some extent, she knows that her relationship with Nishikata is only going to get better from here. Despite longing for the day when he will meet her where she is in terms of romantic feelings, she understands why he is not there yet, and doesn't begrudge him for it. And most importantly, she knows that he will get there one day, and that she is going to enjoy every moment of that process. There is one more story that gives us a little bit more insight into the thought process of Takagi, and that story is, of course, presents. What the hell am I analysing presents for? It's a glorified music video. Oh well, if I can squeeze a 4-minute analysis out of date, I'm sure I can work something out. I'd like to thank my patrons: Orion Tran, Lars Espen, Data52, Jamman5, Pixcalibur, Tyler Bennett, Tanka, Jeremy Pashik, Fireclaw, Chris, Luke Stewart, Swiss Cage, Gerald, John, the Mini Turtle, and the Blue Crystal 770. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time.